Good morning and welcome to episode number 3 of In Bad Form. I am your host, Mark Levitt, and today's special co-host is fellow lover of mystery, Gary Falk. Hi, Gary, and I number one, I really appreciate you coming in for my first podcast. I really enjoy the energy of talking to someone like you, so I really appreciate you coming here for my very first guest on my podcast.
Hey, thanks, Mark. I know it's going to be fun because every time we get together, it always winds up being fun. So, looking forward to the show.
I appreciate that. And as you know, the basic subject matter of all the shows of In Bad Form are going to be on one of either three topics, either non-duality, suffering, or non-ordinary experiences. On the 2 or 3 talks that I did with you, we talked about suffering a lot. In the first 2 podcasts I did, I talked about non-duality. So for this one podcast, I want to talk about non-ordinary experiences. Anything out of the ordinary, anything that flies in the face of conventional reality. And I'll tell you a little bit about why I'm interested in that. As I was growing up, I was always interested in reality, what the nature of it was. I was always kind of doubtful about reality was from the beginning, but I always had I don't know if it was a fear or a feeling or a jealousy that I'd never have anything non-ordinary happen in this world. You know, you hear about ghost reports, you hear about UFOs, you hear about people, all kinds of things. I just always had this feeling that I'll never see anything. Nothing weird will ever happen in my reality. So since then, I've been super obsessed with that. So what about you, Gary? Have you ever had any curiosities or fascinations when you're little with non-ordinary experiences?
Well, yeah, because when I was about 8 years old, I remember this. I was walking in a field by my house, and I can't recall the exact experience per se, but I remember that being a very pivotal moment because I felt like whoa, and I might not have said what is real, but at that moment I called into question what was real. I'm saying like who am I? What am I doing? Where am I? And I was just like suspended in a timeless, a timeless zone, and it just left me with a sense of wonderment because it kind of shook me out of my ordinary, oh, I'm a little kid growing up on Staten Island and going to school. It was like, oh no, what is this? Like what is this all about? Again, I can't recall exactly the experience, but I can picture myself in that field and saying, what is this all about and who am I? So that was probably what kicked off the whole journey.
Yeah, and 8 years old, that's a very mysterious time anyway. That's a time when kids are having dreams. I don't know, did you ever have dreams that you could fly when you were little? Any strange things like that?
I don't remember that, but I remember having experiences, and I've heard other people talk about this, of just repeating my own name over and over and over, and going into some kind of strange altered space just by repeating my name. And I heard recently that Alfred Lord Tennyson used to do that at some. But I'm just saying, so not so much flying, but repeating my own name and going into some kind of zone. As again, I don't.
I'm curious about that. I'm curious about the dynamic that you're repeating your name over and over again. What age was that? Do you remember that you were doing that? Because I have a curious side point about that.
It was around the same time. I think there was this period, and I don't know why my being 8 had anything to do with it. It was just at this period, I just started. I don't know. I guess questioning who I
Yeah.
was, what it was all about.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I didn't have the exact experience of or memory, let's say, of repeating my name or wondering my name, but it did definitely bring up a feeling of something I had when I was much, much younger, when I was really young, just school age or grade, the first or second grade, that type of age. I do have a couple memories that remind me of you repeating your name. My memories there were two distinct memories. One of them And the reason that this reminds me of your memory is it reminds me of finding ourselves in our body, or what we think to be in our body, and learning how to take controls of this new avatar that we found ourselves in. It reminds me of that when you say you're repeating your name, like you're just finding yourself in this new position and you're trying to acquaint yourself to your new orientation to reality, right? Okay.
Yes, that's it.
That's it. That's it. Okay, so I'll
Yeah.
tell you mine. Mine wasn't about my name. I wasn't repeating my name, but I do remember very young playing with my ability of free will. I was trying to see if I could move my hand or take an action before I thought of it. Where I was trying to do something before I could think of it. I was like, okay, I want to move my hand, but I have to think, move my hand, and move my hand. I want to try to do something to my body before I have the thought. I want it to come so quick that it's not like, okay, move your hand, and then I move my hand. I was trying to experiment with if I could get my body to move without having that in-between thought. And like I said, that just reminds me of you finding yourself in your situation. I don't want to say finding yourself in your body, because it's misleading to say that we truly believe that we're in our body, but that's the situation you find yourself in, to seemingly find yourself in a body. And now it's like you're learning the mechanisms. So you're repeating your name, like trying to get it right. I'm looking at my hand, trying to beat my hand. And another memory I had similar to that, you're repeating your name, is thinking about, so basically this came out of my, the result of me questioning free will. And I had no idea what the word free will was. Like I said, I was just trying to beat my hand. I was just trying to move my hand without beating it. And when I realized I couldn't, I came to the conclusion, what I was going through my mind was how we make decisions. Everything in life is going to be, so you're presented with a toy. Do you take the toy on the left? Do you take the toy on the right? Do you open door A or door B? So everything seemed to me about decisions and how to make the best decision. And this was all tied into the free will thing that I was exploring. And I just remember coming to the conclusion that, okay, I can't beat my hand. I can't tell myself to do something without knowing about it. So I concluded from that I didn't have free will in the way that, I thought I did, but I said I could take advantage of the appearance of free will. And every time I'm placed with a question or a decision, I could make the best decision I can. And then, then reality will change based on that. And I know it makes no sense, but like I said, it just reminds me of your situation of finding yourself oriented in your body and trying to figure out the controls of it, right?
Exactly. And let me just add one thing, because as you were talking, I remember now what the experience was. Before, I couldn't really tap into it. I knew I had it, and we haven't prepared anything for this program, so I wasn't even thinking about this until you popped the question. I remember when this experience happened in the field at 8 years old, that my experience was that at 8 years old, was the center of the universe. And when I turned away from something, everything disappeared. And then if I turned around, now it came back. It was all like a play for me kind of thing. So I remember that now. That kicked in. So that's just an extra little dimension to what I had experienced at age 8.
Wow. Well, what you just called just the extra little dimension, for me, that's the whole fucking thing right there. I swear, I'm so glad to hear you say that, Gary, because me too. I mean, if you look at my book now, that's still a huge thread in my life now. But me too, when I was a little kid, I did have that same thought that when I don't look at something, it's not there anymore.
That's it. That was exactly it. And then if I turn around quick, now it's back, because like somebody is waiting for me to like the people, whoever, who are running the show, let's say, okay, turn around, put the prop back.
Yeah. Yes. And I was quite happy to see growing up only a couple times, maybe a couple times since then, I've actually seen it in, let's say, cartoon images that told me that other people were having this experience too. One was just a simple college cartoon where it was just showing somebody looking at the world, and then behind them was blackness. Then they turn around and then that turns into whiteness, and behind them the blackness. So it made me feel good at a college age to say, oh my gosh, somebody else had that experience. And then later in life, a really good TV commercial was a Nike commercial by a director named Spike Jones, who did a commercial where a guy's waking up in bed, and what they do to portray the same feeling that me and you were talking about is they flashed a spotlight on just his bed. So as he walks out and gets out of bed, the rest of the world fades into blackness except for where the spotlight is. So the spotlight follows this character getting out of bed, putting on his shoes and going outside the house, but you could see outside of the spotlight, everything fades into blackness, outside the spotlight. So that is a very powerful thing. I'm super glad to hear you talk about that. These things, I think, are just built into the nature of our design, how we're pulling this this reality off, what you're seeing.
Yeah, and now the whole thing has come, in a way, for me, full circle, because now I've come to understand that maybe at 8 years old, it's an egocentric thing, like, oh, I'm the only one in the universe. If it's all revolves around me. Now I'm saying, no, I'm seeing that same thing, but it's for everybody. In other words, everybody is the center of the universe, their universe anyway. And so it's not an egotistical thing because it's more of a universal thing. That's my take on it.
And and thank you again, Gary. That's another great side point. I think you could attest to this too. For people, and I understand, I don't want to act like this is not an understandable point, but whenever I hear the point that people think that this is egoful, thinking that you're the only person in the world, I think you would agree with me that back when you're 8 years old, when you're experiencing that, it is the last thing from egoful. It is terrifying. It is humbling. It's humiliating. It's scary. It's not a good feeling to think that you're the only person in the world. It is an alone feeling, a scary feeling. It's not something that, an ego feeling is feeling like you're powerful, that you're a person, that you have control and you have power. When you were feeling that you were the only one in the world as a kid, I guarantee you weren't feeling as powerful as someone who, just won the lottery or just, met a beautiful girl or something,
No, that's so true. That is true.
But it goes back to this basic truth that I think that there's another side to this reality. And I think that's where the suspicion is that we're having as kids, that there's another side to it that we're not seeing. There's an invisible half to our reality that will somehow make sense of this half.
Well, of course, I didn't know anything about Shakespeare at age 8, but I did have the sense that there's more to heaven and earth than was being dealt with in my philosophy at that time. I got a sense that, hey, there's a whole lot more stuff happening here than I can even dream about. So I did get that. Yes, I did get that sense.
Yeah, and it reminds me of another sense that I had too. I connected that sense to our world here, and I always had the suspicion that that's why we had sleep. I always thought we were really not here, that we were really in some other world, and that we could not be disconnected from that world for very long. So because of that, we had to create, whoever was on the other side had to create this dynamic called sleep. Like, don't worry, only half the time you're going to be there, half the time you're going to come back here. And I think it's extremely symbolic that we do have to sleep, if you think about it.
Yeah.
It's that otherness. It's that other side. That other side is built in to the life that we're living now, just like kind of like the yin yang, how even the black has a little bit of a light inside of it.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's a good that's a good take on it. I'll have to marinate with that a little bit.
Well, that's the thing, is these childhood observations are really, I think, the things that we should really look at, because where are they coming from? These childhood intuitions, these childhood feelings. I think, we're closer to the source as we're little than as we grow up. Freud described an adult as a deteriorated child, which I like. I like that.
I like it too. Yeah.
And I also had a feeling too that we're always being watched I don't know if you had that, but I was kind of have feeling like this was all being recorded, like on a movie or something like that, like we're all being watched, that this is
Yeah,
being observed.
yes, I've had that. Yes,
Yeah.
I've had that too. Yeah, like yeah, hey, oh, yeah, I've had. In fact, I had that a lot because I went to Catholic school, so I thought God was always watching me,
Yeah.
and also my dead grandmother and the angels. It's like so, like like I'm under the
Yes.
I'm in the fishbowl here. Everybody's watching me. Yeah, no, it was terrible.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Now I didn't have this experience, but I think it ties into it. I think it's funny that both my mom and my sister had this. So as I'm sharing my experiences of, as I'm growing up, I'm saying, hey, did you guys ever think about, in these kind of ideas I'm bringing up to you? And when I did, my parents had, or my mom and my sister had one that I didn't, but I thought was super cool. And it plays into what we're talking about. So they had the idea, they felt like that they were Barbie dolls being played with,
Mm.
which I found very fascinating. That and my mom and my sister have zero philosophical interest to this day, but yet even both of them, when they were very little, they had the feeling that we were Barbie dolls being played with. And all this ties together: Barbie dolls being played with, us being watched over cameras. What was the other thing? Nothing existing behind us. All
Right.
of these things really point back to what my first book talks about, which is that all of our life is just a virtual reality. Everything that we're watching is just on a screen. And if everything that we are watching is just on a screen, then we would be doing all these things, like number one, feeling like we're being watched, feel like we're being recorded. We would feel like there's someone, controlling it, or there's something above all this. That's what I think the thing is. I think we're here, and I think we have this sense. The sensing is that there is something to this that is going to put this into its proper context. That's the thing
Yes.
that's the takeaway for me, is this world is real completely. We're just not seeing it in its proper context. And that's what we're all striving for, is to see it in its proper context. I think I talked to you earlier, but I like to go against the grain, or say things that are not so popular in non-duality. So like, let's say illusion. I like to say the world is not an illusion. The world is exactly what it is. And the reason I came to that conclusion is because I think I've told you, I used to spend tons of time in the mountains, walking around in the trees and the rivers and the forest. And I'm sitting there just looking at nature and beauty and just being taught by everything. And it just dawned on me, if you don't take the world to be something separate from you, if you don't take the world to be something outside of you, then it's not an illusion. The illusion is not the world itself. The illusion is really just the context that you put it in. And what I mean by that is to say that the world is an illusion, or even to say that you are an illusion. That's another thing too. Even to say that you are an illusion is to say that there's something that's not an illusion. You see what I'm saying? By saying this
Yes.
world's an
Yes.
illusion, when I hear that, I'm saying, okay, so this world's the illusion, and one day we're going to go to the real world, and then there's a real
Right.
world. That's not
Right.
illusion. That's all
Right.
we got is illusory. Everything is ungraspable.
That's
Everything
it.
is unrealizable. So, you know, it makes no sense just to be specific. There is no a ground that you could point to. You say this is the real world. So this is all we got. This is the nature of it.
This is it.
Exactly, this is it. But it's just fascinating how all these different pointers, all these different nuances of questioning reality and wondering what we are, they all seem to be consistent with our lives being on a virtual reality screen. And one more experience I had with that I never mentioned. One time I had a really weird experience. This is coming out of a Monroe Institute tape. Are you familiar with the Hemi-Sync tapes at all, Gary?
I am. Is that binaural beats? Is that
That's
what
it.
that is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, binaural beats. Okay,
Yeah.
yes, I'm somewhat familiar, but I haven't gone into it too deeply.
Gotcha. Okay. But that's the technology. The technology is binaural beats. Monroe Institute, they have something patented. It's called hemisync. So it's a slightly different, but it's based on binaural beats. And basically they just put two different tones, one in each ear. And the difference between the tones, your brain is going to have to make sense of it and create a third frequency. And that's the frequency that you're experiencing. And from there, they can take you to different, states and different experiences. But the main thing that I got from that was that everything that you're seeing is appearing on a screen. Everything that you're seeing is appearing on a screen. And that the only difference is really is that prior to this, I was seeing myself inside the screen with it, whereas now you could clearly see and you're seeing the screen. So how can you be in the screen if you're the one watching it? So for me, it's really just all about orientation, physical position, perspective. Because that's the whole thing is people think the world will just disappear, like it's like it doesn't exist, but the world will always be here. It has to be here. It's just your perspective of seeing it. It's just the way that you see it. And if you, like I said, if you imagine yourself to be inside of it, then you're going to feel like you're inside of it. But from tapping into this other side that me and you were talking about, the silent side, the still part of ourselves, then I think that's what's able to give us that perspective to see that everything is happening actually inside of you rather than you being inside of the world.
I think that's the key shift. That if there is one key shift in perspective, it's going from, hey, I'm inside the world and there's a big world out there and I'm just in it as a little bit of part of it, to shifting to like, whoa, wait a second. This is all happening in me. Not obviously not in my little physical body, but in my who I am as open awareness or whatever we want to call it. But yeah, so that makes the big difference. Now there's no like, oh, terror and what's going to happen to me. No, because it's all happening. Everything is happening in me. So I mean, what's going to happen?
Yeah, it's interesting though. I like the terror. I like the scary. I was commenting to somebody about this earlier. Going back to childhood, I don't know about you, but I've always been obsessed with scary things. I've always liked haunted houses. Being from New York, I'm sure you probably like to throw eggs at people's houses and run, or throw snowballs at cars.
Listen, from New York. I'm from New York. We did worse things. We used to put tires in the road. I didn't live in New York City, Manhattan, but I lived in Staten Island. We used to block the road with tires, so people have to stop their car. They get out, and they were furious, and then we would run away. And I remember one time getting caught by one guy. He was furious. No, we should do stuff like that. Yeah, and it would be so scary because these guys would get wild.
Yeah,
because the car couldn't go any further.
So exactly, as young kids, we would deliberately we would create situations in ourselves that were actually physically dangerous to us, so we could have the thrill of terror of trying to escape from a would-be dragon.
Exactly, that was exactly it. It's like, it was really exciting. It was, I don't know, it was very exciting.
When I think about that, I think about whenever you watch animal shows, with little puppies or little animal babies playing, that's what they're doing. They're playing battle. If you watch little dogs or little animals play, the first thing to do is they start mimicking battle. They want to challenge themselves to see what it's like on the battlefield. And I think as little kids, at least boys, I'm not sure if it's such a thing with girls, but definitely little boys, at least little boy in my group, we loved to scare ourselves. We loved to put ourselves in dangerous situations so we'd have to get out of it. And like I said, that reminds me of the little puppies or the lion cubs, play fighting, mocking dangerous situations.
Exactly. Dangerous situations.
Yeah, it's like we're practicing. It's like going back to the thing to where there's to where we sense there's something beyond this, to where we sense that we're under something bigger. I think that's what gives us, as especially as children, to come in here with that freedom and that veracity to play with death. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because we're coming from the infinite. We're the infinite experiencing the finite. So the first thing you're going to want to do is just play with death. And that's all we
Yeah.
do. You know, from us playing to, you know, we're doing something, so we're going to get chased, to the lion playing things. We're all playing with living right there on the edge of a death, scary death, to try to train ourselves. And then as we grow older, that continues with what as adults, now we're starting to do what, roller coasters, you know, scary
Right.
movies. All these things are basically to put your body in a situation that you don't know, that your body thinks it's in danger, but in the back of your mind, you know you're safe, you know?
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
I've had experiences with going back to amusement parks. I don't know how long it's been to you, but you know, once you grow up, you have a long time, right? Yeah, exactly. Well, so once we had kids, I stopped going for forever, you know, because once you have kids, you only go on the rides that they go on.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So by the time our daughter reached the age that she could go on big rides, and I finally went on with her, I got to tell you, it was scary to the point that I felt like truly scared. Like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this to myself?
Oh my God, yeah.
But I realized when I was there, here's what I realized, because the particular ride that I'm thinking about was, it was one of these rides they have nowadays that all they do is they just take you super, super high up in the air and then just drop you. That's the whole ride. The whole ride is they just take you high up in the air and drop you. So as they take me high up in the air, I'm looking down at the ground and I'm scared, and I'm starting to think, I'm watching my body, I'm watching my reactions, and I'm like, what's happening now is my body is reacting as if I was truly on the precipice of a mountain dangling off. Because my body doesn't know that I'm on a ride and I'm strapped in. It's got all the seat belts and it's got all
Exactly.
the $1 million of safety. All my body knows is the sight that I see is extremely similar to the sight that it's seen a million times when I was out in the mountains, looking down, you know, at a dangerous level. And your body is, you know, making you feel weak and basically telling you everything to stay away from it. It's that sense of danger. But like I said, your body doesn't know the difference. Your body doesn't know. I've had tons of fascinating things like that, to where once a car pulled out in front of me before I had a chance to process it, and my body reacted. And I was like, that's so weird. My body's reacting in a way that something that I didn't even know happened. Like I had no cognizance of this car pulling out in front of me because it happened so fast. But yet I could feel my body, you know, pulling on the brakes and pulling on the things. And I'm like, I have no idea. And yet my body's knowing, you know, all these things, which takes us right back to where we started, with being a little kid, trying to learn the gears of our machinery, of our bodies.
Exactly.
One last thing I want to bring up about this memory, the first person perspective that Douglas Harding made popular, you know, seeing out and noticing that, you know, the body's on you and everything.
Right.
That's another thing that I've seen a lot when I was a childhood in cartoons. So I got the feeling that all kids had played with this reality, this first person perspective. And this is the way I played with it when I was little. When I first discovered the first person perspective, I found myself like behind my body, behind the gears that can control my hands. So I'm lifting up my hands, I'm looking out of my window, and it's like a dinosaur. You know, so you can see your hands coming out like a dinosaur and you can see your face. But it's like I became aware that I could direct this machine, direct this body. You know, you're taking your hands, you're moving them around, you're basically treating your body like a puppet. So we're basically treating our bodies like a puppet. And I think that's what
Yes.
I tapped into when you were talking about when you were little and you said you're repeating your name. I think that is like you learning to treat your body like a puppet.
Yes.
And now we do it so smoothly, we don't even think about it. We're just puppeteering our body without even thinking about it. It's just happening second nature. So we are the puppet and the puppeteer.
Well, I'm glad you're bringing that because we're both. We're not just one thing. We're not the puppeteer, but not the puppet. In other words, we're both.
Yes, and the strings. Yeah, we're the puppeteer. Exactly, we're the puppeteer and the strings and the puppet. We're all of them.
The whole thing. The whole thing. We're the
That's
whole thing.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Gary. I super appreciate you coming on here and being my first guest for this. This was all the fun that I expected it to be, and I definitely want you on more.
I was about to say, I think we just scratched the surface because you've opened up some real fertile territory. I'm thinking, let me,
Yeah.
no, but so I think, yeah, I'd be happy to do one more or some more with you. It's always fun to get together with you because we've done different, not podcasts, but we've been on different things together. So I know it's always fun. And new
Absolutely.
things come up. That's what I love it. We're not programmed. We don't have a list of things we want. We just take off and fly, and new things always come up, and that's what makes it alive and
That's
exciting.
magic. Exactly, the spontaneity. What the magic that comes up is the magic that's unexpected. So thank you for making that magic with me, Gary. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, so
Thank
we'll talk soon. I'll have you on here soon. We'll come up with a different topic. If you have any topics you want to talk about, save them for me. Don't waste them. Don't waste them elsewhere. Use them on here.
That's right. As they come into my mind, I'll shoot them out to you, and you can see if you have anything that might be of interest to you to make part of your podcast. So that's good. Okay, Mark. Thanks again. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, thank you guys, and I'll see you back here on In Bad Form. Bye bye.